Hi, y'all. I'm Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial entrepreneur and Amazon bestselling publisher, author, and all-natural product manufacturer. I'm a champion for your natural self-care, sustainable business care, and overall intentional wellness.
Hey, y'all. I'm Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, published author, and dancing social worker who helps you upgrade yourself and community care.
Together, we are a podcast rooted in the 8 dimensions of wellness and the co-founders of the Women Connected in Wisdom community.
And we like to get together every week for intentional conversations between us and special guests about how to be wise in business, relationships, and wellness.
How do we do this?
Through the season changes, through tax season, through birthday seasons, and
through caregiving,
through
the news,
work
through
schedule,
election year, through
inflation.
Right.
And we take a deep breath and
shake it out. Right? Shake it out. Yeah, it's pretty intense lately.
Yeah.
More dancing, I say. More dancing.
Yes, more dancing. Yes.
I am pretty fantastic. I am streaming today. You see the lovely artwork behind me if you were watching the live. That is from my nibblings. I am streaming live from Aurora, Colorado, land of the Ute, and I am at my mom's place doing a little caregiving, checking on mom and dad. Yeah, so grateful to be here. How are you?
Yes, grateful to be here. The season has been, we talk about intellectual wellness, right? Learning and establishing healthy habits. It's been a lot to learn, and that's okay. So learning and taking notes, and I know we're talking about occupational wellness today. What I've been realizing is how long it takes me to process after work, so I come home and I make sure I unwind, but the unwind is taking a second, and that's okay. But yeah.
Can I tell you, so, Monday was April Fool's Day. And I just got this wild hair because I try to put out a newsletter once a month, sometimes every other month, from my personal business, from Christine Gautreaux Consulting. And so I'm like, oh, it's April Fool's. I should send out a newsletter. And I got it knocked out, right? And then it was mountain time. So it was probably midnight or later on the East Coast.
Okay.
And so it was probably about 10 o'clock at night here when I finished it. And then I couldn't sleep because I was excited. You know how, like, when you do, like you were saying, when you come home and you have to unwind, like, even good stuff, right? Because it was good stuff and it got out. And like often when we're doing our things or I'm teaching a class, like I always have to build in that 2 hours, probably, honestly.
Let them know. Really, you have to be honest. Like, it's a block of time.
Disconnects my brain that way. And, I know that from like TV and things that like reading is what calms my brain down in the evening. But it was interesting to note because then I couldn't sleep. And then everything I had written about was swirling in my brain. It was all the things. It was like, and I was beating myself up a little bit, right? Because I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have done. I was shoulding myself. Right?
Here we go.
Oh, you shouldn't have done that. But when I woke up the next morning, sleep deprived, 2 people had already reached out to just give some really incredible feedback, and I was like, well, that was good. At least I didn't do it in vain.
No.
Ooh. Right? It's a thing. This occupational wellness is a thing.
It is a thing. So when you think about occupational wellness, what's been going on with what you've held on to intentionally to maintain your wellness?
Oh, that's such a great question. Part of it is gratitude. I am just so grateful. I talked in the newsletter, like I'm traveling the month of April, as you know, as my business partner, like she's out of here.
Yeah.
But we have created a life that I can work from wherever I go. There's 1 or 2 things I have to rearrange that I do locally and in person, but just gratitude that part of my occupational wellness is I get to travel and I get to come do the caregiving and meet with my dad's doctor and be able to hold my meetings that I need to hold. And I get to go to the eclipse this weekend because
Oh.
is over where we grew up. And I just really, my sister and I both got that longing and that like we need to be there with the season of life we're in and the caregiving we're doing with my parents. And so it all worked out. We weren't supposed to originally do it together, but now I'm traveling with my sister in the nibblings to
Hmm.
Texas to the eclipse, right?
More nibbling time.
More nibbling time.
Yes.
Oh, which I don't know if you know this. I'm gonna
What?
lean in. I'm gonna lean in and tell the listeners this. So last Friday, we got stuck at the Atlanta airport for 8+ hours with my sister and 2 4-year-olds. Right? Yeah. Let me give a shout out though. Let me give a shout out. His name was Kenny. What he said, my name, because his name was Kenneth on his name tag, but he said, you can call me Kenneth, Kenny, Kenny, or Ken.
Okay.
And he was our server. I'm going to say it to you because when we go out to eat, you are always like you're on top of how servers are doing. He was phenomenal.
Thank
Didn't
you.
even blink an eye at 2 4-year-olds coming into a fine dining restaurant at the
Great
Atlanta
job.
airport.
Great
We
job.
went into One Flew South. Have you heard about
Okay.
this? Have you heard about this restaurant?
No, tell me more.
It is a Japanese fine dining restaurant in the Atlanta airport. It's one of the only restaurants in the airport to have a chef.
Okay.
But they're known for their high-end cocktails.
Mm.
They're known, and after I think we were on hour 6 or 6.5, my sister and I looked at each other. We're like, "What do we need here?"
What'd you get?
We needed a craft cocktail.
Hello, a
So
well-crafted cocktail, please.
right?
Yeah.
So we went to One Flew South and just
Mm.
delightful, delightful food, delightful people. They have a mural in the restaurant that
Yeah.
is of a forest. So and then they have these brown planks. Like you feel transported. Like and
Mm.
you can look out and see people going past as they're making their flights, but the music, the ambiance, it was highly recommended if you get stuck at the Atlanta airport or if you have extra time before a flight or after. They were just phenomenal.
I
So,
appreciate that.
yeah. I
I
know
love
you
that
love
service.
good restaurant recommendations,
I do. Like, we might go to the airport just to go see Ken,
right?
like, yes. Even the fact that you know his name. Some servers don't
Right?
tell people their names, tell us
Right?
your name, tell us why, you're important, you're here, what do you have for us? So, I
Right?
love it.
Well, and I think about occupational wellness and the fact that he loved his job, right? I mean, and he just it was obvious. It was
Mhm.
obvious that he loved his job and you can feel that from people when they love their job and when they're healthy in their job, right?
Yeah.
Should I give our listeners the definition of
Do
occupational
it.
wellness so we can get our guest up here because it's going to be
Yes.
an awesome show?
Yes, it is.
All right, let's do it. Today, we're talking about occupational wellness. Occupational wellness represents living in the purpose, passion, and productivity in one's chosen profession. This includes work life balance, and we always put that in quotes, as a fulfilling and productive professional life is fitting to weave together with a healthy personal life. And I'm really excited about talking about this definition today, as we talk with our guest expert about evolving interactions with a neurodiversity lens. Because when you talk about occupational wellness and neurodiversity, yeah, there's huge successes and there can be some challenges too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely some opportunities. So, y'all, today our expert guest is Tracy Winter. And Tracy Winter, PhD, PCC, has been a professional coach since 2009 and an ADHD coach, mentor, and trainer since 2021. Though she has coached executives and leaders, she is most passionate about coaching twice exceptional people and other neurodivergent folks. Her coaching approach is based in adult development models and an understanding of how neurodivergent brains can manifest differently from the norm and from each other. Because each client has a unique brain, she partners with her clients to co-create unique paths to their unique solutions. Help us welcome to the stage Dr. Tracy Winter.
Hi, y'all. Thank you for having me.
Hey, of
Hi,
course. Welcome,
Tracy.
welcome.
Don't we all sound amazing in our bios? Like you listen to it and you're like,
Right, right,
that
Yes,
that person sounds cool. Who is she?
right.
yes.
I always love it because it reminds us sometimes of who we are, right? That sometimes we get into the grind or the daily thing, and I don't know about you, but sometimes I even forget some of the awesome stuff I've had the experience, the ability to be able to do, right? Or the privilege to be able to do. And then when somebody reads my bio, I'm like, oh, wait, oh
Yeah.
yeah.
That. And I want to give space to, and do you want me to call you Tracy, Dr. Tracy? I like
Oh,
to make sure
Tracy.
we,
Tracy's
Tracy,
fine, but thank you for asking.
yes, I like to make sure we put some respect on a doctor, right? Um, I want to make sure to have space for reading the rest of your bio, right? And we can put the longer version in the notes. Made space for it last week with Kay Arms, and both of you ladies are amazing. Super excited to support your partnership. We know about partnership and everything over here, right? And really excited to be able to have a conversation with both of you in the same season. So if somebody's listening through, they get like a really good scope of what you guys do and what both of you ladies bring to the table.
And thank you for supporting our work as well, and putting us out here so that people can know about it.
Of course. So can you tell us more about how brains are different? What does that mean when you say that?
Yeah, so all brains are different. They're like fingerprints or snowflakes. Neurodiversity, actually, the neurodiversity movement means that no two brains are alike. We each are unique. And also, some brains are more like each other's than others, and some brains are more different from the norm and from each other. And I talk in my hands a lot, so you're going to see just fingertips coming in apparently.
Gotcha.
So the way that brains are constructed, the way that brains are wired, and by that I mean like which parts get activated when you're trying to do this task or that task or having a feeling. Most people's brains look a lot alike when they're doing that. And then the clients that I work with have brains that are a little bit different than that. And so their brains are constructed differently. Like there's actually different parts of the brain that are different sizes than the norm. And different things light up, as they call it in the scans. They're trying to do something.
I love that. And what I love about conversations like this is the neuroplasticity and the possibility of change, right? And the possibility of what can happen when we're intentional, when we have coaches who are intentional with being trauma informed and being able to help their client exactly where they are. And hope for the client to be able to stand in their power and everything they do great and say, okay, this is the next thing I'm working on.
Yeah. The strengths is, a typical coach approach, and also extra important, I think, in this population.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I love when you say twice exceptional. Right? That makes my heart smile.
What makes you smile about it?
Well, I think about, especially as a kid who grew up undiagnosed ADD, but got all the messages, right? ADHD was actually got all the negative messages, like I was too loud, or I talked too much, or I was too bossy, or I remember in first grade getting spanked. I can't tell you how many times, and it was always about. Grew up in Texas. It was always about talking or being impulsive, or and I think about all those messages that you internalize, right? So when somebody says twice exceptional, like I have since done a lot of work and shifted and really talk about my superpowers, and especially that my ADHD is a superpower, because people often ask, how do you get all the things done that you get done? Because when people say move the speed of your body, my body moves a different speed than other people. But I still think my little first grader in there who got all those messages about how she didn't fit in, and like that this was really hard. When you say twice exceptional, she just goes, "Oh."
Mm-hmm.
Messages, and I don't have the study well enough in my brain, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. There's a study that showed that the order of magnitude of negative reflections that neurodivergent kids get by the time they're like 7 or 8 is just astronomically different than a kid who does not have a brain difference. So like all those messages that you were getting before you even know what to do with them, right? You didn't have the emotional wherewithal to handle that or decide. It just is this barrage. And so there's that sort of damage and small t trauma being done all the way up, right? So twice exceptional, yes. Actually often multi-exceptional, but we just go with twice exceptional in college today.
Come on, multi.
Well, we believe in the 8 dimensions, multidimensional wellness. So we'll go.
I'll go
All
multi-exceptional.
excellent.
Come on now.
The
I'm writing
opposite
it
of
down.
wellness. I love it.
Yeah, yes.
Right? I
Yes.
love that. I love that. So when you're working with clients, Tracy, and now you have this new coaching academy for coaches, for folks that are dealing with people on the spectrum, what are some tools or tricks that you think everybody needs to know? Whether you're a coach or whether you're a friend or an employer, since we're talking about occupational wellness, like what do you need to know when you're interacting with somebody has neurodiversity?
Well, so one thing is you don't know when you're interacting with somebody who has a neurodivergence. Oftentimes, people themselves don't know if they have a neurodivergence, right? So act as if everyone is different, right? So tips and tricks, I actually back away from because I feel like as a coach, like I go deeper into sort of our core teaching back from Coaching 101. So coming curious and staying curious, which prevents assumptions from creeping in, right? Assumptions are actually judgments. You've already decided a thing. And it is really hard, if not impossible, to be in curiosity and judgment at the same time. So if you come curious and you stay curious, you're going to stay out of assumptions that you could be projecting onto, this other person, interpreting their behavior through your lens instead of understanding their lens and being able to see through their eyes.
Ooh, I love that so much. So that is a huge tip, is stay curious,
Yeah.
right? With anybody that you're working with. I saw, I love social media. I know it has a negative, like a lot of people, we can say,
Yeah.
Animals that at the end of the day make me so happy. So
right? Well, I was thinking about that the other day because I follow a lot of ADHD channels and different, people doing, I just love seeing what other folks are up to.
Yes.
And they were talking about this one I was looking at the other day was talking about if your ADHD friend or partner is like just in that space where they've just got to tell you everything. They've got to tell you everything right now. It's because it's in their brain and they're feeling like they're going to forget it. That, one of the best things to do is just listen. And I think about how challenging that is in our world sometime. And I think about that in relation to the stay curious, right? That often it's one of the most challenging things is to stay curious and not put our filter on it immediately or not think that it's people are just being difficult, right? That's one I get sometimes.
and it's more fun to be curious.
Right.
Like I say as a coach, my gig is awesome because I get to be curious and then surprised by what my clients bring all day long. Like what's better than that? It's like a birthday party every, 5 minutes. But
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I love that.
When you realize you actually didn't know, like this person is going to surprise you and everybody
and so
can.
if you're going to make an assumption, assume you don't know.
Right.
Right.
That's more often correct.
With that curiosity, but
I love that. And I think it's good for teams in general. We spoke a few weeks ago about how 10% or less of business leaders are self-aware. So when you're getting feedback from your team, when you're having these conversations and developmental conversations or building a new team or nurturing the team that you have, staying curious as a leader and a teammate instead of judgmental, I think could offer room for a lot of growth and fun and, healthy, thriving businesses.
Absolutely. I have the privilege of, I'm in Austin and we have the Tesla plant down the way. And I have the privilege of doing leadership development down there with groups of their leaders.
That
and I'm
means
not talking like
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the high hunters. I'm talking about like there's the folks that build the cars and there's
Yeah.
the air managers, and that's
Right.
most people I'm talking to.
Okay.
And what I will say to them, if you remember nothing else from me, I want you
Yeah.
to remember curious. That's it.
Curious.
Yeah. When that comes back on the feedback form, I'm like, yes, mission accomplished because of exactly what you just said, Shannon.
I love it. And I've really been working on remembering to play. I saw this video and it said, if you look at all of your work as play, it'll change your life, you know? And I do have a good time. I have a good time, you know, doing this part, the other parts. Some are not your favorite. We were talking about partnership taxes, you know? I look forward to, you know, like things growing, but it's important to learn where you are right now. Right. So where you're going next will be sustainable. And I try to play in those areas. And so staying curious instead of like, this has to be done right, or what am I missing, or whatever logical way I would usually try to make sure I'm effective. I could just play and learn and keep going.
Well, and even like I'm listening to your speech, and as you said, as you're talking about being logical and analytical, like your speech kind of felt like it tightened up and got a little faster, a lot of press.
Right.
And when you talked about play, it just slowed down. And that's what our brains are doing at the same time, right? So like when we are worrying about what it should be or what it could be, our brains aren't actually working the best that they could be working because they're moving into fight or flight. They're taking in less information. We're not making decisions as thoroughly. So being able to stay in play also means you are closer to optimizing your brain.
And that's what I'm all about. And that's what we talk about in maximizing your capacity in volume 2 of Women Connected. We're working on volume 3 right now. And when I talk about building habits, is, you know, how do you keep yourself in a restful place, but you have all this stuff to do, you know? So I love that you pointed out. And I want to go back to supporting coaches and being trauma informed. Can we give a little bit more context of what that looks like when we're looking through the lens of neurodiversity?
Yeah. So the way we're looking at it is, and I think a lot of neurodiversity informed coaches would agree with this, from what I've heard moseying around the coaching space. Pretty much, not speaking in total absolutes, but if you're neurodivergent, you probably have trauma. It doesn't mean you have like big T trauma, like some huge event, but you are born into a world that isn't made for you, that is made for the majority. And so like, it's just not set up for the way these different brains work. And so like, it's the constant friction of rubbing up against that world. Right. And we know friction, like you have that when you're going hiking, you're going to get a blister. At the very least, you're going to develop calluses, like right?
Right.
We know what that looks like. So it's the same thing sort of internally. And that trauma just carries through. And a lot of times it's internalized, like we were talking about, you know, if you're getting those messages when you're a kiddo, all the way up through, like what I end up working with my clients on a lot is shame and carefully moving through some of those spaces that are maybe dark corners they haven't gone into when they're ready, if they give permission. And it's a careful thing, and also it's a regular thing if you can be both at the same time. So it's important to, like, again, using those coaching skills of noticing and not interpreting, right? When is the client becoming dysregulated? When do you see their color coming up? When do you hear their speech become pressure or shoulders go up, right? Noticing those things and being aware of that pretty much all the time that you're coaching, because you never know when you're going to trip over that particular trauma wire. Yeah. Stop there for now.
Yeah, I love it. I would say, and I think everybody has a big T trauma, right? That in life, there are things that would happen that can hurt you so much to where you may feel broken, right? And you have the option there to lose hope, lose yourself, and go one way, or process it and heal from it and continue forward, you know, whole and as well, I'll say intact, but different, right? We know that you're not the same person you were yesterday. So yeah, that's why I love when we talk about trauma-informed coaches, whether it's the EMTs and first responders that Christine and I talked to at Mosaic, Georgia. I always remember that, those first responders being trauma informed is important. Coaches dealing with individuals and clients like this is really important to be trauma informed. So you're not trying to, I love what you said in our talk before, coach them. What was it, Lord? I just had it. Basically coach them the same, up against the same. Oh, it was the behavior. Because when I was thinking about going to get my master's, I have a bachelor's in psychology, right? So I'm trying to figure out what type of therapist I would be. I thought about cognitive behavioral therapy, right? But if you're trying to coach behaviors and it's the brain structure, now we're talking about two different things.
Yeah. And what I end up working on a lot with my clients is sort of moving from, this is the way it has to be done. This is the way I've always been told it's been done. This is how my behavior needs to look.
Right.
To where do you want to be? Like, what changes do you want to make? Where do you see yourself? And then okay, so again, back to the strength space, right? Like, how can we work with your brain to get you where you want to go? And it may be that it's a solution that would work for absolutely no one else on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if it works for this person, and usually we need, especially as ADHDers, we need 2, 3, 4, 5. We need really a menu of options of solutions, because one of them starts losing its shine, and then we got to rotate. And so having that menu is really helpful. But all of them flowing with their brain. I mean, I've got a beautiful testimonial that said, I like my brain now. I used to fight it, and I like my brain now. And I was like, oh,
right. Yes.
Right. Yeah. You understood the assignment.
Good job.
I love that. Yeah, love my brain now. Well, I don't know how many of our listeners know that April is Autism Awareness Month. But when you think about your work about evolving interactions and thinking about folks on the spectrum or with autism or ADHD or a combination of the both, will you speak a little bit towards that? Because we were having a really good conversation before the show went live about that most people have more than one neurodiversity.
Yeah, neurodivergences tend to travel in packs. There are people that have just one. There are plenty of people who are only diagnosed with one. But oftentimes one of them might overshadow the other 1, 2, 3, 5. So the complexity of these overlays is what creates this unique way of seeing things. So when it comes to communication, like you're talking about, you put enough of those, when the Venn diagram is more than 3 bubbles, it gets kind of messy, right? To figure out what's going on where. And that's what we're talking about with brains, except sort of infinitely. And so these folks that have these different ways of perceiving things, have more sensitive nervous systems. And I see these folks as if I'm not one of them, which I totally am. But we have a more sensitive nervous system. We are actually getting different information from the world and from each other than most of the folks. So we aren't even working with the same data set to start with before we ever communicate. Right. And so it's that you don't see the world the way I do. I don't see the world the way you do. And that ends up being, especially for autistic folks, they're doing it wrong because the majority can understand each other, right? So what do you need to fix so that I can understand you? And that's like being a, stereotypical loud American and going overseas and being like, why don't y'all speak English?
Right.
That's not a thing. When you're going to someone else's world, if you want to understand them, learn their language, learn how they see things, make that effort at least. And that's, I think, one of the big things that's missing in our understanding of autism in particular, neurodivergence, and the miscommunication that can happen.
Thank you for that. I think that really goes back to what you were saying about stay curious, right? Because if you want to learn their language, you've got to be curious. Because I think the other thing that tends to happen is people see the stereotype, right, of somebody that has autism or ADHD, and they think they know your language, or they think they know how, because of I mean, I think it's with any stereotype, right? But that stay curious about what works for the person in front of you, right?
Everybody's heard this. Well, no, I don't know that. Everybody I know's heard this because I talk about it all the time, probably. But like, you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person, you've met one ADHD, or you've met one ADHDer. There are collections of behaviors that often show up, but the manifestations, these different nervous systems and these different ways of perceiving and these different ways of the brain being developed are very disparate. So even among, other folks that are like neurodivergent, that can be challenging. But there's been some studies.
Hey, y'all, this is a great place to take a break, take a deep breath, and hear from our awesome sponsors that make Women Connected in Wisdom podcast possible. Shannon, we are so grateful that Shaylo Glow is the sponsor of the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast. And I wanted to take this moment to ask you, when you think about the people who use Shaylo Glow, who are we talking about?
That's a good question. I think about 3 groups, really. One, the group that's removing hair, right? So whether you're using laser hair removal, waxing, shaving, you got to make sure that you're putting back what you're taking out. The second group, I think about those with dry skin and the problems that might cause, right? The scars, itching, burning, whatever the situation is, you definitely need all 3 steps, right? The exfoliation, making sure you're taking the dead skin cells off. The oil, putting in the moisture, and then the shea butter with the aloe, sealing it, helping you heal. Those things help both groups, right? And third, for the third group is those with chronic illness. The story is personally from cancer and different diseases that our population is dealing with on a daily basis throughout families as individuals. So I'm thinking about my mom and my grandmother and those around me with the same generational ties, right? And what positive, healthy habits we can start to make sure that we're maintaining our wellness, especially because the skin is like the cape, the exterior, the shield for your immune system. So with COVID, we have to be intentional about covering ourselves. And those are the groups I think about.
I love it. And you know what else I love about your product? It's all natural, handmade, and it smells great, y'all. So
yes,
yay.
Tested. Yes, esthetician tested and approved. Yes. What about you? When you think about your company, what groups of people do you think about?
Well, I work with individual coaching clients. I work in community classes and with corporate teams. And with all of them, I use a strength-based, embodied approach to help folks connect with themselves and access joy, reduce burnout, and build resilience. Especially during these times, I think we need it. I think we need all the hashtag partnership power we can get.
Yes.
There's been some studies, like if you put a bunch of autistic folks in a room or a bunch of gifted kids in a room who are seen to be awkward and socially problematic and like don't communicate, all that disappears. All that just disappears because they're with people who are more aligned with the way they see the world than usual. It's really kind of astounding.
Well, I've been in those situations before, and I love it because I don't know if you've ever gotten into these conversations. Like sometimes when you're in a really exciting conversation with folks that are on the spectrum, you jump around. Like you are like, boom, there, boom, there, boom. And
linearity is not a thing,
right? Absolutely. And there's some places in the world that people cannot follow you. Like it's not. But when I've been in groups of folks that are ADHD, autistic, creative, and you can be followed, like your train of thought, however hot potato it is, can be followed. I don't know. Even thinking about it brings me joy because I think about some of those conversations and just how soul nourishing they are.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like, I have happily set up my life so that that's mostly who I interact with because those are all my clients and they come to me going, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place, or other things that they've had reflected to them that they have internalized around that. Like, and I'm like, I know what you're talking about. I'm following you just fine. Like, I'm right with you.
Right.
Right. And if you were to not make the jumps, I might get distracted.
or bored.
The word is my
You can say what you mean. The swimming connected. Yeah.
Like, if you're neurodivergent, if I'm not bored, chances are.
And what I want to make space for too, Christine, because it's the second time you said it. Yes, you do know. You do know because you said it again. And I love the conversation, making space for, I mean, I definitely get it, as different categories overlap and the way that things are lined up, set up differently for you. And again, that's why I wrote the book on the habits. Like, this is how I nail down the landscape when everything's changing outside. And it's like you were talking about the friction of what is actually set up based on what you need to operate successfully, and effectively from a calm, centered place. So I love it. I think your work is so important. I want to go to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What were you going to say? No, please. Did you have something for that?
Well, yeah, like on the habits. Like, so that's an example of where we make assumptions, or like we say, this is how you got to do it, right?
Yeah.
And ADHDers, habits really help. And also, we're kind of crap at them, right? Consistency is not in an ADHDer's vocabulary, except as an aspirational word.
Oh, aspirational.
Right? Like, we all want to be consistent, and I don't know anyone who's pulled it off for a very long length of time.
Right.
But what we can be is persistent. Right?
Ooh.
So a habit is something you do over and over. It's something, when my clients say, I'm going to do that thing 7 days a week, I say, that's a great stretch goal.
Right.
What's achievable? Partly because if they say they're going to do it 7 days a week, they either hit the goal, right? Or fail by not. Versus, let's get a win. Let's get a couple of wins. Let's get that dopamine moving and get that motivation going so that you want to do it some more. But we have to, like, that's a place where we have to come up with other ways of getting that brain motivated.
I love it.
Right.
And I like the realistic expectation. If you're going from not doing it to 7 days a week, I like the warm, maybe redirect, right? Okay, that's a good stretch goal, and not just shutting somebody down. That's important, right? But let's be realistic. That makes sense.
Well, realism isn't really one of our fortes either, so I don't even feel that. I just say, so what feels like you could definitely do it. Definitely. I'm more asked them to back down a little more after that.
Right. I think, Tracy, about the times that I have had consistency in my life, I've been hyper focused, right? Like, I mean, I just lock on, like, to when I trained for my first triathlon and things like that. And then I look at how quickly that goes, like, and this is one of the ways I'm like, okay, I know my brain is different, right? I can do something for 365 days if I am hyper focused on something. And on the 366th day, I can forget I've been doing it every day. And then I look up and I'm like, I'll look back years later and go, oh, yeah, I did that like for a long time. And the whole thing about, it takes this long to make a habit, and it takes this, and it's like,
for
it's
most
like
brains,
for
right?
most brains,
for most brains,
right?
Right.
And that's the thing I think that is important for us to know and to be curious about, and to say it's a yes and, right? That this sometimes works for some people and doesn't work for other people.
It's so important. And
I'm sorry, I cut you off and you wanted to go somewhere.
No, it's okay. I'm on a completely GPS redirecting me somewhere else. It's the interesting
conversation.
Right. No, this is where we live, right? But really interesting. It reminds me of when I realized I wasn't giving balanced feedback, right? And I gave a lot of positive feedback to my team. I always want people to believe in their potential, see the potential in them. I'm going to help develop the potential in them. Again, potential myself, right? CBT therapist, going to focus on the behaviors that we can control and the part of life that we have control over, right? But what you're shining light on, I think I, as a coach, if I were to be in that space and coaching somebody, is remembering it's not always SMART goals. And okay, do it 21 times and you'll get there. Maybe it'll take you 42 times, but you'll get there. And just knowing, hey, this is option A. Maybe you need A through D for this person and they need to pick something else. You know what I mean? It's not that you're not even the best coach for them, but maybe this is not, like you're saying, the way that their brain is built. and it needs to be something different.
We were talking a little bit before we came online about language. And not just SMART goals. I don't use the word goals with my clients. If I do, it's a slip up.
Okay.
Because my ADHD clients in particular, but different kinds of neurodivergences that have trouble with consistency, they've set goals. They've goals over and over and over.
Right.
And have a lot of shame about not meeting them, not keeping them, not being consistent.
Understandable.
So like even using that word is going to heighten their anxiety a little bit, which makes their brain not function well, right? Yeah. So I like where I might ask a neurotypical client, and actually I don't, because neurodiversity inclusion assumes that everybody could be, right?
Right.
But where you might ask, what are your goals by the end of this engagement, or what are the goals for this session? I say, what changes do you want to see by the end of this engagement? Right? And it's the same question.
Yes.
Right? But just that language that's been used over and over, and that has these trauma feelings attached to it. Quickly bring that up. When I can sidestep them, I do.
It's wise. And I bring up the strengths because not paying attention to, or knowing how to pay attention to weaknesses or opportunities that I can support somebody in as a leader, right? I was missing the opportunities to support them better, And so instead of judging, again, we talk about noticing, right? So if this person is not with you, let's look at, okay, they're amazing at these things, but how can we support them? Maybe I love that. What changes would you like to see? And then they could share and you guys can work together.
Yeah.
When I think about occupational wellness, Shannon, even as you're talking, because Tracy, Shannon has been in the service industry for years as a kitchen manager. I think about how many people say it again.
I got that from the server conversation earlier.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think about a lot of the people I know, like who work in the service industry, and a lot of them are neurotypical, like that really fast paced, it's interesting. I was not good at it at all. My dipping my toe into the service industry was on a Parents' Day weekend, and I was not well trained and fully ADHD, and that not go well at all. But I do know some folks, chefs and things like that, who have really like thrive, like they're twice exceptional, right? And their brain just like lights up with all the activity. And so I think about that for occupational wellness, Shannon, like how many folks are neurodiverse, and how the systems and the corporate systems aren't set up for that. Like they're set up in like,
that makes sense.
So
two things. My brain usually comes up with at least two things at a time. Two things. One is, you're absolutely right about the service industry, and that fast-paced, don't need much working memory, just like be in the moment, right? No prep needed necessarily. You don't have to like study for it. That. You also mentioned your EMTs that you've been teaching or been working with. EMTs, ER staff, all of that. Like, these brains are often really good crisis management, because where everybody else's brain goes hot, somehow we get cool and we just go, this is how you do. My dad's an ADHDer, and he is amazing in a crisis. Just like solves the problem. Well, my neurotypical mom is not so much, even though she's amazing in every other circumstance. Oh, darn it, I didn't write down the other thing. What was the other thing? It was bigger. Welcome to ADHD.
Welcome. Welcome. I love it. And we're here if you remember.
Oh, that was it. Sorry. Oh,
no, we're here.
Well, we're talking about occupational wellness. And so one of the topics that comes up a lot is accommodations in the workplace. And like, do I divulge that I have a diagnosis, and what are the challenges around that? And I get asked a lot, like, well, why should they have special treatment? And I'm like, well, okay, so basically we're asking people, what do you need to do your work best, right? I need a soft light. I have this theory that fluorescent lights actually take our body's energy and transmit them into light energy, and so it's actually not actually using any energy. I need certain music for certain times. I need not. These are part of the reasons that I'm self-employed. And also, like, why wouldn't we ask everybody these questions of what do you need to do your work best? What can we accommodate within reason for everybody. So it's not just like neurodivergent people and not, it's this neurodiversity inclusiveness, right? If we come with that curiosity for everybody, like everybody's going to be a better student.
Yeah.
And we for sure don't need those darn fluorescent lights that buzz or used to buzz when we were in school. Remember when you were taking a test and all you could hear was the bzz,
Especially when they're about to go out and they're kind of flickery. I fell asleep in my SATs the first time because of those lights.
Wow.
right?
Yeah, fell right
It's
asleep.
real. It's real. Like that.
When I found out about the difference between fluorescent light and natural light, like I was already bought into the natural lifestyle and everything, but I said everywhere you look at it, like it just makes sense.
Well, and that's that heightened nervous system too that we were talking about, right? Like a lot of autistic folks who have heightened senses and that extra sensitive nervous system, that buzz that you're hearing, like, and how do you work when you have this happening to you, basically, in whatever sensory way, right? It's like, you're not going to do your best work under those conditions. So like, why not give them a lamp? Is it really that tough?
Love lamps. Where do you ladies like to buy your lamps before we go to the wisdom in action?
When have I bought lamp?
I'm a huge thrifter. So like
Yeah.
I like art and I like thrifting, and the current lamps I have in my house I thrifted.
Okay.
And I was at a garage sale or an estate sale and they were gorgeous. And I was like, ooh.
An estate sale, that makes sense.
Right. And somebody was moving, who knows?
Right,
But it
something
was
like
something, it caught my attention. It was, yeah. And my daughters are the same way. So I think they were the ones that spotted them, were like, Mom, these we gotta change
Good
out our
job,
lamps.
ladies.
Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about you, Tracy?
Marketplace where I got my last ones.
Wait, what'd you say?
Facebook Marketplace where I got my last lamps.
Okay.
Why buy new when there are perfectly fine ones out there?
Mm-hmm.
My favorite lamp, actually, and I don't remember where I got it because I've had it for so long. I take very good care of him. Is a bullfrog with a lamp, and his name is Charles. And he looks a little bit disapproving of everybody.
Okay.
Like, so he sits on my nightstand and he's like, "You need to go to sleep now. You need to go to bed." Like,
go away. She's going to sleep.
Tracy, I have a frog. He's not a lamp, but he is at the entrance of my labyrinth. When people come into my labyrinth, and he kind of has that look too. Like, are you supposed to be here?
First of all, the fact that you like easily said in a sentence, "When they come into my labyrinth," I'm like, tell me more about that.
You'll have to come to Georgia and visit.
Yes,
so I am north of Atlanta, and Shannon's in Decatur. She's right next door to Atlanta. So you'll have to come visit.
Well, and I'll
come
stop
walk
at the
my labyrinth.
I'll stop at the restaurant in the airport first.
Right.
Have one of those craft cocktails that were so good. Ken.
Shout out to
Kenneth, Kenny, Ken.
Right.
He said we could call him any of those. So
which one did you pick?
I think it was Kenny because I think I got that order wrong. I think he said Kenneth, Ken, Kenny.
Okay.
Or you can call me Kenny. And we were like, oh, we can call you Kenny.
Gotcha.
Like now when I hear Ken, the song immediately starts from the Barbie movie.
Yep, I thought about Barbie.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I could actually like say that and take someone seriously.
That's what I'm saying. But Ken was doing his job, so he can be Ken.
Right.
He can be Ken. Yeah.
Such a great job, y'all. And it makes a difference, right? And it with kindness. I mean, when I think about just think about 4-year-old young people who have been stuck in an airport for 6 hours and are more than likely on the neurodiversity spectrum. So they have some, and just kindness, right? Kindness and, like you said, curiosity and being able to meet people where they are, I think is lovely.
One of the things I've started doing in restaurants, like Shannon, you were saying that sometimes servers don't even introduce themselves. And I've always thought it was very strange that the servers introduce themselves and we're just like nameless blobs. So I've started introducing myself to the server and like the people at the table. And I tell them, and you don't have to remember our names. It's totally cool, but it just seems appropriate to be on the same even footing.
You say that, Tracy, and there's a certain coffee establishment that I sometimes go through in the morning before caffeine, and they ask me my name, and I'm a little grumpy about it, giving it because I'm like, yeah, wait, I need caffeine. And they're like, how are you? And I'm like, well, I'll be better in just a few minutes. Like,
And also, you're talking to a 5-year Starbucks barista when I spent a few years as a professional musical theater dancer. I got a health benefit somewhere, and somebody would come through my line, and it was like the most belligerent thing I ever did. They would say, "Hi, how are you this morning?" And they'd say, "Venti coffee." And I'd say, "Hi, how are you this morning?"
Right.
And they'd be like, "I'm fine." Great, let me get you that venti coffee.
I went through the other day and somebody goes, hi, how are you? And I believe in being authentic. So I was like, well, I'm really just not having a good morning. And I'm hoping you can fix that. And they were like, oh, okay. And then they wrote on my little thing, I hope your day gets better, which just, of course, made my day better. Like you give me a little
bit of human interaction around that authenticity. It's gorgeous.
right? Yeah, absolutely.
Listen.
I have so enjoyed our conversation, and we're rocking and rolling towards time. So it's about that time for wisdom in action. So
Yes.
Tracy, every week
Hmm?
we like to hashtag our conversations just because we love social media. And so we think about the conversation that we've had over occupational wellness, and we think about what is our wisdom in action going to be this week around occupational wellness. And Shannon, you want to go first? Because I know you got notes over there, my friend.
Oh, you saw me taking notes
I got
in my
you.
new notebook? Okay. Yes, the new notebook is a multi-textured and it's soft. So
You want to talk about sensory stuff?
right.
And tell them how much you got it for, because that makes it even better.
So we're talking about connected in wisdom, right? So I was looking for the notebooks, and we talk about environmental wellness. We actively use all of our pages. So it was time for me to get another one. And I had looked in the back. I said, no, this one's not right. This one's not right. And found this by the cash register. They try to get you on the way out, and it didn't have a sticker on it. So a gentleman went around and looked, and he needed to go to the back because he wasn't going to find another one. But I told him, I looked in the back already. You're not going to find another one because it's the only one like that. And he told her to put the $3.99 sticker on it. So I love being connected in wisdom, and it's definitely
like when that happens, it's cuter.
Exactly. And useful. So it was an investment, and happy about it. And for my wisdom in action, ladies, I think that mine is, and I do have a couple. I think I like hashtag operate in your superpower. And this is me thinking about where I am in the different businesses, right? Whether it's coming out of kitchen manager training, 6 weeks in the kitchen with Topgolf, and having learned my team, learning the systems, and operating in my strengths, right? So operating my superpower there and across the businesses, like we were talking about taxes and planning for Q2 and everything we have going on right now. And I also love to stay curious. For me, that's on the list with notice instead of judging, and instead of holding grief and gratitude, acknowledging it. Like that's a very important distinction that I think I'll keep as a reminder for myself when I feel like things are getting difficult. Just stay curious. Yeah. So those are my two. What about you,
what
ladies?
You got, Tracy?
Oh no, I'm sorting.
It's okay.
We're here.
The curiosity thing is always top of mind for me. Like you can tell by how much I talked about it today. I have a colleague who says, pour curiosity on it. When you're not sure what to do, pour curiosity on it. I love that. But I think staying curious is key, but I think coming curious is what you got to do first. Like there's a little bit of mind resetting as you enter into conversation. Like how can I be curious today? What can I be curious about here? Which then helps you stay curious if you come in that way, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Ooh, I love that, Tracy. Yeah, I had written down hashtag stay curious, but I think I am going to change mine to hashtag come curious. So I think
I love it.
Oof, good stuff.
It's a gift. I really feel like it's a gift. Thank you.
Thank you for making it so easy and drawing out of me whatever was useful. So
we have loved this conversation. Can you tell our listeners how to find you? Like how
Sure.
to find you and your coaching. Tell them everything.
Yeah. So my website is www.nerdcoa.ch. So that's nerd coach with the dot right before the ch. That's my private practice. I'm Tracy at Nerd Coach. I'm also on LinkedIn, Tracy-Winter. And then if you are a coach or a therapist or just curious and want to come learn some ways to be neurodiversity inclusive, come on over to the Neurodiversity Coaching Academy. That's the website, Neurodiversity Coaching Academy. If you spell it right the first time, you're doing better than I usually do. Because it's a lot of letters, man.
Yes.
But we've got master classes every month. We've got our master classes that we've already given are recorded. It's $10 for 90 minutes or $10 for a 90-minute recording with a transcript and all the things, because we really are committed to more people knowing this stuff and being able to come in the ways that we've been talking about all this time. So
that is a fabulous price.
It definitely is.
Like that is, we're going to
it
put
won't
that
stay that way forever, but it is for this year.
Right? Oh, folks, y'all need to get this. This is hot off the presses. We will put that all in our show notes. So people, if you're driving and listening, don't worry. You can go to womenconnectingwisdom.com and get connected and find our show notes. And Tracy, thank you so much for the work you're doing in the world, for who you are, and just your curiosity and incredible skills.
Yes.
Just grateful.
And thank you ladies for like having this forum, for being interested in neurodiversity and wanting to put that forward, and for all of the other wisdom that you're bringing into the world. 8 different kinds of wellness. That's a lot of wellness.
Right? That's a lot of wellness.
We got to evolve these.
Just keeping them straight.
Right. No, really. We got to evolve these interactions, though. So yes.
Shannon is usually the one that goes down the list. Like I usually get 7 out of the 8, and I'm like, what is that?
Yes, there's always one of whatever it is. Absolutely.
And guess
usually
what?
the one I need to be working on.
Right, evading you. And that's why I pull up the list. Let's go ahead and pull it up, right? This is real life. We can have our answers in front of us. That's what I love about being connected to you ladies.
And here's evolving interactions, right? Complementary skills.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
You don't need to figure out the list, Christine, because Shannon's got that covered much more easily than you would have it covered. So there's evolving interactions with the Neurodiversity Lens right there. You're doing it.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
And
look at her just wrapping it all up with a bow.
Right? That's why the partnership power.
Right.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Tracy. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise.
So delightful to be connected. We look forward to more.
Absolutely.
Yes. Peace.
So fun. What a great conversation.
And it's so important. Like we talk about just different positions people are coming from that you don't know by looking at them. Right. You know, it's important to keep that in mind.
And we didn't even really talk about that, right? Mm-hmm. About how folks on the spectrum, often it can be an invisible disability. And I know some folks don't like that word of the disability, but it's a thing needing different accessibility. Let's say it that way. Yeah. So, yeah. Very cool.
And I get it, especially talking about occupational wellness when you're setting up the system, you know, setting it up for another situation, and another situation just expands the variables and the variety. But it's important to be inclusive, to make sure we're effective, and to make sure that people are getting their needs met, so that we can, you know, keep our staffs, we can keep the teams that we build. They can have longevity, and then
keep the twice exceptional people.
Come
or
on,
multi-exceptional people.
Multi-exceptional.
Right? We didn't really talk about this a lot when Tracy was on, but they're also really fun.
Right. Fun in work environment.
Absolutely. They're the people that are going to bust out into song, or it's absolutely. All right, my friend, what do we need to give a shout out before we close this episode?
Okay, guys. So we've talked about it, right? We've talked about volume 3. We talked about the 18 authors in volume 1. We talked about the 12 authors in volume 2 and the audiobook that we have coming. We have a few days if you would like to join us, we have 7 days. We are looking at how many authors we're going to have for volume 3, or playing with some pivoting. Do we do it this year? Do we continue to have amazing expert guests and continue in everything else that we're doing and build volume 3, because it is still on the way? If you have a story that you've been looking forward to sharing with us, a resource that would benefit people who are looking for these type of tailored opportunities, right, to get exactly what they need in a specific dimension of wellness, reach out to us in email and let us know that you want to be included in volume 3. We'll send you the form and the information you need after that. And if not, we hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you again, Tracy, for joining us. And we'll see you guys live at 5 next week for episode 155. Okay, ladies, see you guys next week. In the meantime, don't forget,
be well,
be wise, and
be whole.
Peace.
Thanks for listening. This has been the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast. On air live on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern via Facebook and YouTube. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be part of the conversation and get connected at womenconnectedinwisdom.com.